Morning everyone, and welcome to another episode of Beck's Backyard Barbecue. Today we've got the 500-gallon reverse flow fired up. We're going to be doing a couple different cooks inside of it. We're doing a couple briskets for a neighbor of ours, and then for here at home we're going to do a detailed video on pork loin. So we have a half a pork loin here, nice cut of meat, and we're going to take you through the process that we use to cook pork loin. So stay tuned, come along with us here. We got the fire burning. Let's get started. So here we are, folks. We have got a about a 4-pound pork loin here, and the loin of the pork, or the pork loin, comes from the back side of the pig up next to the spine. So the spine would be running here, there'd be a loin on the other side, your ribs would be down here. This is different than tenderloin. So there's pork loin and there's pork tenderloin. Tenderloin actually comes from the inside of the animal. It'd be back down and in here. It's below and inside the hindquarters of the animal is where the tenderloin is located, and it's a much smaller cut of meat. So what I like to do is, anytime I do pork, I like to do a basting of mustard first, and a couple reasons. One is obviously mustard is a little sticky, so it does help my rub to stick to the meat. I did take this out, I patted it dry to start with. And you don't have to get crazy with this. Just a real light coat of mustard is how I like to start. And so again, it helps my rub to stick to my meat. The other thing it does is there's vinegar in mustard, and vinegar does act like a meat tenderizer. You can't even taste the mustard when you're done. We do this on ribs, we do it on pork loins, we do it on pork butts, shoulders, picnics, you name it, pork wise, we do it. I've got a dry rub here that I've made up, consisting of salt, pepper, onion, granulated garlic. There is a little cumin in it. I do put just a little smoked paprika in it to give me the color that I like. Brings in a deep red color. So I'm just going to lightly season this meat. And again, lightly is probably a bad term. Anytime you get a thick cut of meat, you can season it fairly heavily because you're seasoning such a thick piece of meat. So that side is done. We're gonna flip it over now to our fat side. Myself, I do like cooking fat side up. The one catch to cooking fat side up is you do not get a bark on the fat side of the meat. You can't make a bark on fat. But when you're cooking at home, you're looking for flavor, that kind of thing, I like fat side up, just because a lot of your natural flavor of your meat actually comes from the fat. That's why even when you're sourcing a piece of meat to cook, typically you always want to go to a higher grade meat. You want to look at that marbling inside the meat. The more fat, the more marbling, the better the flavor is gonna be. So that's something to always look for. And pork loin is one here. It's not typical barbecue. You're not going to try to set a hard bark on it like you do with a brisket or something like that. So there, our loin is seasoned up, and we will get this into the pit now. So here we go. We've got our wood-fired pit. It's a 500-gallon reverse flow smoker. For those of you that have not seen some of our other videos, and I'm going to pop a rack out here real quick. And in goes our pork loin. So again, I'm going to run the cooker about 225 to 250 degrees is my goal. Close this up and we'll let this sit. So we're gonna run 225 to 250 degrees. We're gonna cook for about an hour to an hour and a half per pound of meat. And all right, everyone, we're just gonna do a quick check here on our pork loin project. So we're starting to get a nice red color to it. The thing to watch with pork loin is it is inherently a fairly lean cut of meat. So we want to make sure it don't dry out. And looking at this, you can kind of see this area here. It's looking a little dry. So I'm going to make up a spritz of apple cider vinegar, a little bit of apple juice, and we'll come out and hit it with that spritz to keep this moist as we cook. Right now we are about 2.5 hours into the cook. So we'll temp it here in a little bit, see what we're at for an internal temp. I'm going to wrap it a little prematurely compared to some other cuts of meat that we do, just to retain the moisture inside of it and keep it nice and juicy. So when we get up to about 130, 135 degrees internal temp, we will go ahead and we'll wrap this loin in some foil. So stay tuned and we will keep cooking here. All right, everybody, it is time to wrap. We've hit an internal temp of 135. So let's open this up. And remove our pork loin. That is looking good. Okay, so we've taken our pork loin out. Again, we hit an internal temp of 135 on it. Pork loin is a meat that you can dry out. It does not have necessarily the highest internal fat content. So trying to retain that moisture is something critical that we do. There's the underside. So the one thing I like to do anytime I wrap is I melt a little butter, and the secret behind the butter, at least my personal secret, is I always find a butter that is 100% cream butter. Meaning when you look at the ingredients on the package, doesn't contain vegetable oil or canola oil or any of those. It is 100% cream, and you know, salt or no salt is up to your preference. So I'm gonna put just a little butter on it, and then I do like to come back and I just hit it with a real light dusting of our original dry rub that we used to start the process. So here's our loin. We're gonna come back. This butter is where we really start, to me, to set our color, get that nice glossy sheen on it. Just really gives us a nice looking piece of meat, whatever it is, brisket, ribs, pork loin. I do the pork butts this way, do everything this way. And again, I always start out on the bottom side, the side that you know, will be down on the cooking grate, and then I finish on the top side, since this is obviously what you're gonna see, what you're gonna present to your guests, your family, friends, whoever it may be. So again, just a real light dusting of our original dry rub, some melted butter, heavy duty aluminum foil. We're just gonna roll this up into a nice tight little package. I always make sure I fold my ends up rather than underneath of the meat, just so that way as you're finishing up and you're checking on it, it's easier to access the meat. There you go. And then back in the smoker we go until we reach our final temperature. All right, everybody, we've reached an internal temp of 165 degrees. So we're going to go ahead and pull our pork loin out now. And we will open this up and take a peek and see what we have. All right, let's open this up. We got some steam coming out. We've got a lot of juice down in here. We can see that we've started to split that fat cap just a little bit on the top. It smells great. I wish you could smell this through a video, but we do. We got a lot of good rendered fat juices in here. We retained a lot of our moisture in there. It really does have good color. Just looks really nice. So there you are. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please hit the like button. Please hit the subscribe button to follow us for our newest videos as we put them out. And we're going to slice into this and go enjoy some pork loin. Thank you. Have a good day.